Whether you're an original trilogy purist, a Chad prequel enjoyer, or you're a fan of the cringe sequel trilogy, there's one thing I think we all can agree on, and that's the Star Wars franchise has some of the sickest video game adaptations of all time. But before you start screaming your hot takes at your monitor, we're way ahead of you, because today in this video, we're going to be talking about what was the greatest Star Wars video game of all time, and why.
Jedi. Good.
All right, so first up, we have Star Wars Battlefront 1.
A perfect capturing of those epic battles could be like, from the experience and point of view of a player. I remember specifically Geonosis the most, I think, from that game, but also, fighting in Cloud City and fighting.
Yes.
They really nailed that game.
Yeah.
Kashyyyk as well.
Kashyyyk at night. Yeah, that was cool. Crazy. But Battlefront 1 was like, it was ahead of its time. It was wild.
So next is Star Wars Bounty Hunter. This game was freaking awesome. Amount of weapons that were available to you and the storytelling, exploring and walking around in these awesome areas in the Star Wars universe. It's fantastic. It was a great game.
Yeah.
One of my personal favorites. I loved this game. I'm going to say that about every game on this list.
Okay. The LEGO Star Wars trilogy as a whole is awesome. Me, who's like a big completionist, tons of that stuff to do, massive amounts of, arguably the most out of any Star Wars game, collecting all the mini kits and 100%ing each level and stuff, like just awesome, super fun, love it to death.
Star Wars Empire at War.
Technically groundbreaking at the time, like the scale of those space battles, you could just like go into the cinematic mode and it would cut like it was a movie to all the interesting things happening in the battle. You could just sit there, take your hands off the controller and just watch the battle unfold that you've built up to. It was the first game I really played online. Like I first got internet, I didn't have Xbox Live, was in a lot of chat rooms and X-Fire groups, and I joined my first gaming clan. It was just awesome. Like I just had really fun memories of that game.
Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This was a pretty cool game.
It was.
Honestly, it just played well. Like it really did function well. They really took the events of Episode 3 and expanded upon them creatively and put that creativity and that power in the hands of the player.
It went extra hard for no reason and had this like dual mode, cool fun cheat codes I remember putting in. Like it was just so sick.
Absolutely. Star Wars Rebel Strike.
Star Wars Rebel Strike, which I don't know. I remember playing it on the GameCube. Didn't finish it. I didn't like it. I think it was pretty boring. Okay, that one goes in F tier. Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, bro. Yo, BioWare did not have to go this hard. It was a solid sequel. Really cool characters, the RPG choose your own adventure book style of things and I fell in love with all that. Like, oh, I can be a Sith, I could be a Jedi, I could be like whoever I want to be.
Darth Nihilus. Probably one of the coolest Sith Lords ever. I know that's a hot take.
Oh no, well technically he's not even top 10 most powerful Sith Lords.
Some of the characters from that series are timeless, and even today they are constantly being asked for.
Yes,
people want to see them. They want to see them in games. But yeah, Knights of the Old Republic 2 game gains. This next one on the list, we have to talk about it.
God, man.
Star Wars Battlefront 2015, a squandered opportunity. It did some things extremely well. This game's biggest issue was just its lack of content. Visually, the game was stunning. The audio was fantastic. Throwing back to bombs at my feet and jetpacking around and shooting people with overpowered guns. Balance wasn't the best in this game.
No.
But it was fun. I know that we actually did play this game together a decent amount at a time.
Yeah, we were pretty good at it. That's why we kept playing it.
We were good at it. There just wasn't a lot of content in the game. There wasn't a campaign. If this game was the first of its kind, that would be one thing. But to come out a decade after, the original Battlefront 2, which afforded you so much more content.
To have not even a fraction as much of the content as that game had was just wild. To have the audacity to call itself Battlefront and share the same name and be a reboot of that was just, it just felt like very much in bad taste. Yeah, they did a really great job on the art and the graphics and all that, but that doesn't last super long, like the wonderment of that, especially for it to be EA's first Star Wars game that they released after they acquired the license. It set a really bad tone. I think it made me dread future Star Wars games from EA at that point. Yeah, that's a fuck this game.
Star Wars Rogue Squadron. I remember vividly this because this game released, I was 2 years old. I would play this game with my dad, and I was too young to operate all the controls on the keyboard. I would sit next to him, and my only job was to press the shoot button, and he would fly and do everything else. And I did that for a long time until I was, a little bit older, maybe 7 or 8. It nailed the fighter combat, and they took you to all these new places that you'd never seen before and just fleshed out the Star Wars universe. That game just had the sauce.
Force Unleashed 2, not nearly as much content, not even close to as much content as the first game, not as close to even as interesting of a story as the first game. It was super short and just like there was just barely anything in it. I don't really know. It just felt like a cash grab.
I agree with what you said. I mean, the game is not gains. The Force Unleashed, one, absolutely phenomenal and a certified hood classic. It really showed the Force in a new light, and it showed the true power that could be harnessed in a new light. And this was the perfect Star Wars power fantasy game. The customization, the cheat codes that I would put in to play as other characters in Star Wars, and just the characters you encounter, the worlds and the play spaces and the environments that you get to traverse. And the storytelling is fantastic. Star Wars Battlefront 2 2005, the grandfather of video, the mob boss of video games. Everything you could ever want from an epicness and a battles perspective, right? The content, the game mode, the customization, the ability to play the games how you wanted to play them, right?
Instant action, any era on any map. Yeah.
Any era, any map. You could change it entirely. Jawas versus Tusken Raiders.
Yes.
Heroes versus villains in Mos Eisley. Dude, there was a campaign.
A really interesting campaign.
Conquest. Are you kidding me? Banger maps, right? Mos Eisley, Tantive 4, Utapau, the Death Star. Okay. The Jedi Temple. Hello. Not only were there these fantastic maps, but fantastic game modes, both in space and on the ground.
Battlefront 2, ruined video games for me, because Battlefront 2 was the game that for the rest of my life, I compared all other video games to, and I would just be like, how did Battlefront 2 in 2005 go so hard and have so much content and be so good and polished and sick and give me everything that you could possibly want, and these games can't all these years later? It just goes so hard. No one even asked for it to go that hard, and it just one-ups its predecessor in every single category, and frankly one-ups most video games even in present day in every category, including its name-sharing successors.
No, I think ruining every other video game is a pretty accurate way to put it. Shadows of the Empire. Yeah, I remember playing as Dash Rendar, trying to escape Echo Base, getting around all the snowtroopers and the Wampas. Overall, this game was really cool. It was difficult, but yeah, I have fond memories of this game. Here we are, sir.
Yeah,
Knights of the Old Republic.
Wow.
Darth Malak, Bastila Shan, in all of her mommy milker glory.
HK-47.
The HK-47.
I even going back and playing it pretty recently on PC, goated. The first time you saw the Old Republic era, the first time you saw so much of that, you kind of become the Jedi, and you have to go through kind of the trials, you have to learn about the ways of the Jedi, and it was the first time you got to see what is that like? You were really becoming a Jedi. You got to see that whole process and the ancient ways, and getting your lightsaber and all that, what all the colors mean was the first time that was ever kind of brought up. A true Star Wars adventure through and through still holds up to this day. You feel like you're experiencing it and you're doing it, and you have all this agency over what happens and whatever, you know, what happens to the world and these people and your story, and you can be kind of light side or dark side, and they have alignments too, and like that was all super groundbreaking and awesome. Like the perfect kind of setting for a game like that is Star Wars.
To me, it's a testament of how much better games are when the people making them are given total creative freedom. The creativity is something that needs to not be interfered with so much as it has been in recent years. Star Wars Battlefront 2. 2017. This is a complex,
arguably the most controversial and complex.
Started out as a very microtransaction heavy, very slow to progress, dry, lackluster in content game. It got so bad and was received so poorly to the point where Disney had to intervene, to say, hey, what the hell are you guys and what the hell is DICE, your studio, doing? They added a lot of content to the game, and now it plays pretty well. It's pretty fun. There's a lot to do. The problem is that it took them 3 years to fix their game and get it into the state it needed to be in at launch. So
really came out of the gate terribly, and it was the first video game I ever boycotted. Ever, because it was just so egregious what I was seeing in terms of the shameless cash grabbing and microtransaction systems. It really had taken it to, I think at the time, was the furthest extent of what was acceptable, and I think generally people decided it was not acceptable and they were not going to accept it or stand for it, and a lot of people chose to distance themselves from the game. And even if you could look past the microtransactions, the offering at launch was just bad in the first place in terms of gameplay. So last year was the first time that I finally played the game, and we all played it, like a lot of my friends and I. It was fun, like a lot of the time. Probably the most immersive Star Wars experience you can possibly have that makes you really feel like you're there. The performance issues as a strictly PC player for all and the rest of my friends, unplayable. Like it was just unplayable. Like the performance issues were so numerous that at any given time one of us was experiencing like a really unplayable issue. So it was just really hard to enjoy. And it sucks because it actually was pretty fun. It sucks, man. So unfortunately, even though they've tried really hard, it still does not do it for me. Republic Commando, dude. Yo. As you probably know, I did a Let's Play of this game. I love this game to death. It's amazing. The commandos are sick. I've read the Republic Commando books. Like, they're my favorite characters. The music was off the hook for no reason, like in such a stylistic way that wasn't purely Star Wars. It was something new. The voice acting was amazing. The characters were super funny and cool. The gameplay was just so addictive. The gunplay was so fun, and you got to see a side of the Clone Wars that you didn't in the movies or any other games. Probably the best strictly first-person shooter Star Wars game.
The way that Star Wars was presented to you in this game is something so unique and something that was not and has not been done since. I really hope that we get something like this in the future, another iteration or maybe a sequel. Death Troopers hunting down like rebels. Give us another like super intense, tactical, gritty, suspenseful shooter game. Like you really felt like you were in over your head at all times, and the only thing that you had to really keep you, was your squad. Like
your boys.
It was you guys. Yeah, it was the homies. All right, and you guys just had to make it work in every situation. And it really felt that way. It really felt like in every situation you were in, you were set up for failure and you just had to find a way to make it work. That's such a real concept, I think, for Special Forces. They managed to really capture that in a Star Wars tactical shooter game. That feeling of like, we should not be able to accomplish this, but because of our training and our synergy as a team, like we are going to make this work. And I don't know, there's just something about the feel of that game, the fighting an uphill battle. And
I remember watching the behind the scenes, and like they really did do tactical. They brought in like trained guys, from the military. They trained with them to get an actual sense of how would they maneuver, what would they do, how would they breach a door. Like, so they did their research. Yeah, they really like did all that and went super hard in the paint with making it feel super realistic, and you can tell. And for it to be a Star Wars game is like, what? Like how is this more real? How is a Star Wars shooter, tactical shooter, more realistic than half the actual real life like modern day tactical shooters that come out? Like, it's wild.
Yeah, someone is gonna rip their hair out now, because when it comes to Jedi Outcast, I have to put it in didn't play.
No, Jedi Outcast is so good, man. Jedi Outcast.
I know.
The lightsaber combat that this game introduced was unprecedented. The greatest, best, most fleshed out lightsaber combat that had ever been seen before or since for a long time. Force Unleashed, honestly, did not rival the lightsaber combat level of detail that the Outcast series did. There's one game we'll talk about that came out very recently that finally does hold a candle to the Outcast series. Outcast was tight, but honestly not as tight as the next game on the list. Jedi Knight Jedi Academy took what was really good in Outcast and then just freaked it. Then it introduces you're your own character, the most robust character customization. You could play as a Twi'lek, you could play as a Keldor, which was sick because I loved Plo Koon, so of course you knew I was playing him. Customize your lightsaber. You could choose to have 2 lightsabers, a double-edged lightsaber, just 1 lightsaber. You could choose what color it was, and they had like a wild colors that you could pick from. You could also use light side and dark side powers, so you could use Sith lightning. You could play how you wanted, and you could even use guns if you wanted to do that as well as a first-person shooter if you wanted it to be too. But where it really shined was the lightsaber combat, because it was just so robust. It was so sick to fight other force sensitive lightsaber wielders in this game. Every fight feels like a movie fight. Like you are in a battle to the death. You are fighting for your life. This opponent is very skilled. You feel like they've been training their whole life to kill you, like to be at this moment. Every fight feels like that, and you're just pulling out all the stops to fight an evenly matched opponent every time, and it is so awesome. God, the lightsaber fights in that game are sick, and the campaign is awesome. The environments are sick. Jedi Knight Jedi Academy is so tight, man. You gotta play it. Star Wars Obi Wan, a game that no one talks about, and you still only can play it on an original Xbox or with a rudimentary emulator, takes what happens in the movies and then loosely like expands on them and kind of like has fun with it. The game is interesting because the lightsaber combat, not as good as Academy's, but fun in the sense that because it was on a controller, you would control your lightsaber with the right stick. The way that you swung, like you moved the joystick was the exact way he would move the lightsaber. So you could like fully control how you move the lightsaber and like how you would fight and block and like where you'd strike people. And that was definitely the best part of the game. Like that was really cool to see. I would say go play it just to see what I mean, but like you fucking can't. Like, it's like you have to buy an original Xbox. It also had this cool duel mode where you'd fight each Jedi on the council as you progress through the game. They would have these intercut scenes in between levels where you'd have to fight each member of the council one by one, and then at the end you fight all of them at once, and it's sick. Anyway, whatever. Go watch a gameplay of it, I guess.
Star Wars Jedi Power Battle. This is a pretty fun game, and you got to play as some of your favorite prequel Jedi throughout this game: Qui-Gon, Mace Windu, etc.
Plo Koon.
Yes, Plo Koon as well. Episode 1 Racer, that one goes straight into S tier.
Bro, Racer, dude.
You could race in all the different pods, and you could upgrade them with different things and make them faster or more maneuverable, etc. Some of the racetracks environments were really cool. I enjoyed this game. I played it quite a bit.
Yeah, this is like the Gran Turismo of Star Wars. Like, there's really not been a game quite like it since. A lot of those tracks were super cool too. Like they were just really interesting tracks that you'd play on, and racing just felt good every time. Like it just always was so tight. Like it controlled well, and it's just so fun every time. Still to this day, it really holds up.
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Stunning visually, great storytelling. It was a very, very good story. I loved some of the characters, not all of them. I enjoyed the play spaces and the kind of like interactive kind of puzzle-like, Uncharted feel environment. I thought it was a fun twist on Star Wars, but it also had good traditional combat and a reasonable amount of difficulty to it, with fighting bosses and things like that. It was reasonably challenging. Overall, this was a good game. Maybe a little bit lackluster in content.
But I did like the rogue light kind of style of gameplay. Cool game. I agree with the content thing. Once you beat it, it's like there's really no incentive to replay the game is the thing. You don't really get much for playing it a second time, unfortunately, because unlike Force Unleashed, which this game is the most similar to, you don't get like alternate costumes that are cool. You just get alternate ponchos, which pretty underwhelming. The ceiling is pretty low for how cool you can look if that's the only thing you can unlock. So there's really not a lot of as much incentive as there was in like Force Unleashed 1 to explore and get all the collectibles and do multiple playthroughs, unfortunately. But the game was super solid nonetheless, and the gameplay was really tight. Like, I agree, it reinstilled my hope that good Star Wars games could be made, and that even good games that are strictly single player will still be getting made. Jedi Fallen Order's success turned a lot of heads because it had come from the publisher that had previously said a few years ago that nobody wants to play a single player game, and then they contradictingly enough release a game that's strictly single player, and it does phenomenally. I think it was really important. It was an important win for the franchise, for video games in Star Wars, and possibly even games in general, to be honest. Like, it really set a good tone. It was a great game. Super Bombad Racing was like the Mario Kart for Star Wars, and it was actually pretty Bombad, I will say. It was pretty fun. It's cheesy, hokey, funny. And the Clone Wars games are bad. All right, so let's check your tier list out. I'm gonna look at yours first here.
Woo!
Wow. Oh.
From games I have played, the only game we don't agree on is Battlefront 2.
That's weird.
Which I put in C tier instead of D tier, because I think that by the end of its time and like all encompassing of where the game is at now, like it's a C tier game.
Yeah, we do agree generally on A to C, and even we actually pretty similar across the board. There's just one problem, right?
I noticed that.
There's just one problem. We disagree on what the greatest Star Wars game of all time is.
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you an opportunity to explain, albeit in vain, why you are not wrong.
Right.
And it's going to make me feel bad personally, as I love Republic Commando.
And I will say, I'm a little biased because it just holds such a special place in my heart. Republic Commando, I'm a big first-person shooter guy, and Republic Commando was just such a gritty, cool, action-fueled romp with the boys. Sev is like one of my coolest characters in fiction. The story was really interesting. The voice acting was great. The tactical, aspect of the game was so well done, so expertly crafted. The environments, the attention to detail, the sound design and Foley, all the weapons being new, like a lot of what you see in the game being like stuff you haven't seen before. This game also, I think, came out before Revenge of the Sith, so this is like the first time you saw Kashyyyk and even General Grievous briefly, and like the Magna Guards. Like these are aspects of the Star Wars universe you had not been exposed to yet, and it was really sick. At the ghost ship missions, and you fight the Trandoshans, which is like the first time you fight Trandoshans like that, and you're using like a projectile ballistic shotgun, which is so sick. That gun is so awesome. And the vibroblade that you have in your wrist that you can stab people with, and the blood sprays on your visor. Like, it was so gritty for a Star Wars game. It was so goated. The gunplay, the action, everything. It was just awesome.
Okay, fair. While I respect all of that, I'm also going to have to fully disagree that Republic Commando is the greatest game. It is a fantastic game. I'm going to have to say, Star Wars Battlefront 2 2005 is without question the greatest Star Wars game, and I'm going to tell you why. This game transcends Star Wars. You want to talk about replayability? This is a game that you could play offline by yourself for hours and hours and hours and hours and still have fun, because the amount of content in the game, the amount of ways to play it, vast expansive, and the battles felt alive. It didn't feel like you were the only person in a match. It managed to take matches against bots and it made them feel like you were playing online multiplayer matchmaking all the time. And you could set up playlists of game modes and maps you wanted to play. You could change which eras were fighting on these. There was just so much to do in a game that felt as if what you could do would never end. It was truly just replayable content, something you could do over and over again. You'd have your friends over, you'd split screen. Every time I play it, there's a different result in, whether you win or lose. Some of those maps were definitely more challenging than others. Winning Geonosis as the clones in particular, man, I don't know what it was that made that so difficult, but it literally standardized and benchmarked all of the qualities of first-person shooter games as we recognize them today. I don't see how it can be denied that this game is the father of rap. This is the father of shooter games. This is the father of Star Wars game. And the culmination of those two things, in particular, Star Wars and shooters, just makes this game the GOAT. I would argue not only is this the best Star Wars game, but I think you could make a case that this is the best shooter game ever made. This game rivals Halo 3. It rivals Modern Warfare 2. You name a shooter game, I think that someone could substantiate a legitimate argument that this is the best shooter game ever created.
Hunter, do you really think, after all what you just said being as true as it is, and us having the history of bonding over Star Wars Battlefront 2, that I actually would not have it in S tier? Are you kidding me? Of course it's S. Of course it's the greatest Star Wars game of all time. I can't believe you even believe that I would say that.
I was offended. I was offended.
I'm offended.
Took exception
now.
to that.
Star Wars Battlefront 2 is the full package. And like I said, it ruined video games for me because every game I played after it, I just said, this isn't Battlefront 2. And I've never felt like that. Anything you wanted to do, you could do. There was no limits. And yeah, like for someone who didn't have Xbox Live or even internet at the time, it made me feel like I was playing multiplayer, which I so desperately wanted to do when I was a kid. It made me feel like I was in a multiplayer match. It made me feel like I was like playing against people because of the bots. Like that was a cool ass feeling. The stat tracking, I remember getting the like veteran or elite status after you get like a certain amount of kills. You spawn in with a buff, I'm pretty sure, if you remember that, like the red buff,
upgraded weapons,
upgraded
and damage
weapons.
and being able to heal without standing near a droid.
Because it tracked your stats across all your games. I remember looking at my kill count and like I would check my stats and be like, okay, what's my rank? Like that was the first time I ever experienced that in a game too, because like I didn't have Xbox Live. Like that was my earliest memory of like caring about my stats on a game, which like sounds dumb, but like at the time it was cool. And like I always played against elite bots and I'd be like, bro, I can't even make them harder. Like this is too easy. You know what I mean? Like that shit was just like, that game was off the hook. This was really fun. A trip. It was a trip down memory lane. Some of these games I forgot about, fondly get to remember now.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And to hear the full, unedited discussion, follow the Game Gains podcast. Link in the description.